I'm going to begin by asking these characters were sort of an amalgamation of real people. I was wondering about how you went about crafting these roles, and if you met anyone or sort of spoke to people, and what sort of research you undertook to get into these characters.
I didn't meet anyone, but I did, as you said, it's an amalgamation. So I watched the documentary Surviving Mumbai. There's a wealth of clips and obviously footage and interviews with survivors and family of victims that are accessible on the internet. And Anthony Maris, our director, he's basically an encyclopedia on the subject, because he's done so much research. So I got to speak to him a lot, and that's sort of how you shape. And also, he actually gave me a character bible. He created very layered background and history for the characters, and he really talked to me in depth and urged me to sort of build on that history based on the people who actually existed.
Yeah, I'm slightly loath to pull the curtain back on also and how it's built. The fact is that the character I'm playing is an amalgamation of a couple of people, but really acting is about being in the moment entirely, and we were trying to represent as honestly as we could, without any kind of normal acting tricksy bullshit, people who are in this situation. They're all terrified, but they all react to it in different ways and cover it in different ways, and so given that I knew I'd programmed into my imagination as much as possible where this guy had come from, once the cameras roll, you're trying to be there and present and have all the thoughts and fears going on in your head as they would be in the moment. You're not thinking too much about how you built it.
I was wondering about how it's to watch for you guys when you watch it back, because obviously you were on set, you know the film inside out. So, but are you able to have a disconnect and treat it like an audience member would? Because I mean, it is one of those films that when you do watch it, it's hard not to be completely compelled by it. Is that the case for you guys? Do you feel the same tensions that I would feel, for example?
I think so. Yeah, I honestly think it's one of the only things I've ever been a part of where I forgot that I'm watching myself on screen, or that I had any part in this film. I was really impacted to the point where in Toronto, when we watched it together, when we went on stage afterwards, there's a video of me floating around just crying, because that's how impacted I was. Because they're not negative tears, they're tears of just, it impacts you, and it's so confronting, and you feel sort of inspired to be and do better.
You have a huge experience watching this film. You have to remember as well, there's loads of scenes we're not in. People are split up around the hotel, and we're never alone with the gunmen. So the first thing I did was marvel at Anthony's craft. You can't believe this is someone's first film. Yeah. It's just a truly magnificent cinematic experience before you get to the content. And then it's overwhelming emotionally, and so it was easy to forget that I was in it watching it. Actually, the least favourite bits are when I'm on, because then I do remember those bits, but luckily that's not for most of it.
And I mean, it's also sort of horribly pertinent. Obviously, it's quite a recent tragedy anyway, but just with the amounts of the mass killings in America still going on and stuff, and this is probably a bigger question than in a small TV junket for a film, but what's happening around the world at the moment, particularly America, is really fucked up, isn't it? I mean, how do we process that as normal, regular people?
One of the ways we've always dealt with trauma and difficulty is through narrative, through story. So the Greek tragedies were written at a time when the Greeks were at war for decades and decades, and everybody was citizen soldiers, and they'd all lived through PTSD in their families. And so we not only explore our situation, but we can inspire, we can reshape, we can give ourselves templates through storytelling. And that's one of the reasons why this story is timeless. It's not that things are worse now than ever. There'll always be attacks of some kind somewhere. And this just, I hope, puts a message out there to believe in humankind, that ultimately we're capable of good and greatness, quiet, humble greatness.
And I think it's an art form that can be very cathartic for the people making it, for the people watching it. I think there's value in that, and hopefully that's what our film does.
So just finally, to end on a sort of a lighter note than that, I was reading that you got stuck in the lift with Armie Hammer.
Sure.
And his wife.
May I add that Armie was responsible for us getting stuck in the lift, because he started jumping up and down. We were over capacity, and he was the one who insisted that we all, nine of us, got
his version of the story is that he rescued the day by opening the panel, which he did do, but he needed to rescue the day.
Yes, because his very pregnant wife was in there with 8 other people, over capacity, and he starts for fun jumping up and down. You know, he's very tall, he's 6'5" or something.
He's a big unit.
And so then he had to pry open the elevator door with his bare hands in a very heroic superhero move. And he does tell that part of the story.
Yeah, that bit he's very big on.
The part where he actually got us stuck in the elevator.
There's a bigger point, actually, weirdly. that this film was incredibly intense to make. So we're all keeping ourselves, imaginatively at least, in fight or flight mode all day. And Anthony would play bomb noises and bullets and screams and stuff. It's the only job I've ever done in 32 years as an actor where everybody went to eat every night. We all gathered every single night, even though we were spread in different homes, because we just needed to let off steam before we went back into that cauldron during the day. So that's why everyone was in the same lift.
Well, I won't be getting in the lift for Mummy Hamburger. Thank you so much for your time. I'm actually going to leave this time.
See ya.
Cheers, thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, thank you.